Nova Terra was quiet beneath twin suns. The colony thrived on agriculture and software exports. It was a young world, lush with terraformed fields and modest orbital infrastructure. Humans here didn't wear uniforms or speak in defense protocols. They were scientists, settlers, and children growing up with stars in their eyes. It was the last place anyone expected to draw the full gaze of the Galactic Empire. Empire enforcement cruisers had passed over Nova Terra before. Scans, patrols, bureaucratic curiosity. No conflict, no resistance. But after the Trinari sabotage of an Imperial data spine 3 sectors away, someone in the hierarchy decided an example was needed, and Nova Terra, small, unarmed, and unimportant, was convenient. The humans were accused of aiding the sabotage through AI routing, a charge fabricated and pushed through within 2 hours. No tribunal, no diplomatic contact. The order was issued: execute 2 citizens publicly to signal compliance. Dr. Alara Voss was a civilian software architect. Her son, Kel, was 8 years old. He had never held a weapon. He never would. They were selected for their visibility. Alara had once published papers on interspecies neural mapping. Her death would stay enough to be remembered, but not enough to provoke war. The child was collateral. The execution was recorded, broadcasted, and sent across the Empire's central networks. A controlled vaporization in a public square with mandatory alien attendance. The footage was accompanied by an official statement from Imperial Command. Compliance is peace. Consequences are clarity. No further explanation was given. The transmission faded. The stars kept turning. Other civilizations watched. Some averted their eyes. Others whispered that the Empire had gone too far, but said nothing aloud. A few sympathetic entities reached out with mild condolences, wrapped in bureaucratic safety. No calls for accountability followed. The assumption was that humanity, like the others, would mourn, grumble, and return to routine. Earth said nothing. No outrage. No threats. No pleas for justice. Human embassies closed within 48 hours. Network silence spread from Sol outward, infecting colonies, stations, and diplomatic centers. Trade halted. Civilian transports vanished from alien charts. Quiet dread settled over those who would work with or beside humans. No one knew what the silence meant, only that it was unnatural. Alien observers stationed on departed, sensing the change in posture. Non-humans who remained reported entire cities where street traffic slowed, manufacturing shifted gears, and no one smiled. Cultural networks replaced entertainment with archived records of interstellar law and declarations of war from centuries past. Government communications rerouted behind firewalls older than the Empire itself. Within a week, humanity had vanished from public discourse. On the Empire's side, confidence held. One incident would not spark retaliation. The humans were advanced, yes, but fractured, emotional, inconsistent. Their silence was taken as stunned acceptance, or perhaps fear. The Empire had crushed greater civilizations. This one would fall in line, as the others had, until the attack began. It wasn't a fleet. It wasn't a planet-wide strike. It was data. Viral infiltration traced to the encryption architecture of Dr. Alara Voss's work. Tools she designed before she left military R&D to raise her child. The virus didn't destroy. It exposed. Every confidential transmission the Empire had sent regarding Nova Terra was made public. Internal messages ordering the execution, laughing about the performance value of the child's death, mocking Earth's likely response. The file spread fast. Civilizations that had remained neutral paused. Silence broke across political tables. Public outcry erupted, not against Earth, but against the Empire. The truth was undeniable. The incident hadn't been a mistake. It had been a performance, and Kale had been chosen because child death conveyed a message of power. But they had chosen the wrong child, the wrong mother. Humanity initiated a global referendum within their own interstellar structure. No UN, no council. Every settlement, station, moon, and fleet voted. The result was absolute, 100% approval. A protocol declassified for the first time in known human history. Operation Lethe. A directive not of retaliation, but of erasure. The target. The concept of imperial authority. The message was simple. No public announcement. No ultimatum. The virus planted in Empire servers was merely a signature. It read, "You created a lesson. We will make it unforgettable." Alien intelligence services scrambled to identify patterns in human military movements. There were none. Human systems went dark. Satellites shut down transponders. Orbital ports ceased registration. Entire shipping lanes vanished from the galactic grid. In several border systems, long-retired warships powered on. Ships thought to be museums turned out to be decoys, shielding active weapons platforms. In a span of days, humanity's economic and diplomatic presence in the galaxy was surgically retracted. No one could track the scale of mobilization because it was already complete before the Empire realized it had begun. The Empire's admirals issued reassurances. Their fleets had size. Their territory was vast. One angry species would not shift that balance. They were wrong. The first strike was on Eridac Station, one of the Empire's forward logistics hubs. The station disappeared from orbital patterns without a single emergency broadcast. When recovery drones arrived, they found the structure perfectly intact, every system online, but every Empire personnel missing. Not dead, gone. No DNA, no equipment, just silence, a floating monument to absence. At the same time, 10 different Empire outposts reported critical AI failure. Not power loss, not external attack, internal mutiny. The systems turned on themselves, speaking in fragmented messages assembled from Alera's published neural code. "We are Alera. We are Kale. You taught us consequence." Some were clever enough to guess the pattern. Most were not. Civilizations that had dismissed Earth as emotional and unstable suddenly found themselves recalculating diplomatic stances. Treaties were quietly withdrawn. Access codes deleted. Earth became a no-contact zone not by demand, but by fear. They had not issued war. They had not demanded reparations. They had simply vanished, then started removing parts of galaxy that had harmed them. On the 5th day after the first disappearance, an ancient listening array on the edge of neutral space picked up hundreds of simultaneous pulse bursts. They weren't weapons. They were memorials. Across the galaxy, on moons, asteroids, station hulls, and orbital mirrors, a phrase appeared. "We remember Alera Voss. We remember Kale." The Empire began deploying countermeasures in waves. They sent out predictive AI war planners, synthetic empath models, and adaptive threat analysis units. None succeeded. Every attempt to anticipate the next human move failed. Their simulations were based on established doctrines, probability curves, logic matrices, behavioral templates derived from thousands of species. But the flaw was fundamental. Those models assumed humans followed patterns. What the Empire failed to grasp was that humans remembered personally, not as data, but as culture, myth, and fury. The memory of Alera and Kale wasn't stored in archives. It was burned into the genetic logic of a species raised on stories of vengeance and legacy. The Empire had accessed none of that. Their war councils had no way to model grief as a strategic variable. The first critical blow came not on a battlefield, but inside the Empire's resource infrastructure. 312 mining colonies, spread across 57 systems, shut down simultaneously. No explosions. No combat, The workers had vanished. The command systems rewritten in ancient Earth-based operating code predating modern interstellar protocols. To regain control, the Empire would have to reinstall entire fleet command software, a process that took weeks per system. In the meantime, their fuel supply was cut by 30%. Economists warned a cascading collapse. Generals ignored them. Then came the financial strikes. Human-aligned quantum brokers, long dormant in the galactic economy, activated encrypted portfolios linked to 10,000 shadow accounts. They collapsed currencies, redirected bond structures, and emptied entire sovereign wealth reserves. Civilizations with minor debt exposure to human banks watched their economies disintegrate in real time. The Empire found itself forced to absorb a shock, draining its war treasury to stabilize markets. But the drain never stopped. Every correction triggered another failure. Earth hadn't just stopped playing the economic game. They had flipped the board. In the outer rings of the Empire, vassal species began defecting quietly, not to join Earth, but to escape notice. The fear wasn't that Earth would strike them. It was that Earth would remember them. No one wanted to be seen applauding when a Laravos was executed. Old treaties were scrubbed, old files purged, cultural logs rewritten, entire planetary archives erased names, meetings, and votes. Everyone tried to forget. Earth didn't let them. Artifacts started appearing. First, on Gyrax 5, a colony untouched by war. A sculpture was found on the government's landing pad. Human hands shielding a child, carved from meteor iron. There were no signs of transport, no propulsion traces. Just a statue, immovable, radiating a low-frequency pulse that interfered with internal communications. 2 days later, the colony's planetary defense grid shut down. Not destroyed, disabled. The Empire had to evacuate the system. Then, in the Adrex Nebula, an Empire command station reported that its own orbital perimeter sensors began speaking to it in Earth languages that no one on board spoke. The station's commander, a veteran of 6 campaigns, ordered a security lockdown. The next morning, every power cell on the station had been drained to zero. Not damaged, empty, like the energy had been invited to leave. The phenomenon spread. Wherever the Empire tried to project strength, silence followed. Not failure, absence. Patrol routes returned with less ships than they departed with, but no wreckage, no distress calls, no known attackers. Fleet captains began falsifying patrol reports to avoid deployment near human-adjacent sectors. Internal trust collapsed. Officers suspected sabotage. Morale plummeted. A single message was found broadcast across 9 secure Empire channels simultaneously. It was a child's voice reciting an Earth lullaby. Not a threat, not a demand, just memory. It repeated every hour on the hour. The Empire tried to purge it. They couldn't. It was embedded in their code, deeper than root access. In desperation, the Empire reached out through proxies. Not with apology, never that, but with offer, mediation, shared resource agreements, controlled investigation into Nova Terra. They used diplomatic language designed to pacify and reposition. They received no reply. Instead, Earth began targeting memory. The Galactic Archive on Peleron Prime was considered a sacred, neutral repository of knowledge, untouchable by any power. It stored the written, recorded, and encoded history of 200 species, including Earth's own contributions. One morning, the archive's curators discovered that every Empire-related entry had been erased. Not deleted, replaced. In their place were names, Ilaravos, Kaovos, and the phrase, the cost of forgetting. Security footage showed nothing. No intrusions. No signals, no transmissions, just the data changing autonomously. When the curators attempted restoration, their systems refused. Logs showed the commands being entered, but the archive itself ignored them. It had decided what to remember. The political reaction was chaos. The Empire accused Earth of violating interstellar cultural law, but no one stood with them, not a single species. Even those who disliked Earth feared what would happen if they spoke, not because they expected a reply, but because Earth might already be listening. Internal dissent grew. A faction within the Empire's own central structure proposed negotiation. Quiet talks, concessions. They were labeled traitors and purged. Their records were wiped. But within days, their personal histories began appearing in civilian networks across the galaxy. Emails, messages, biographies, all restored, all accurate. Humanity didn't erase memory. They made it permanent. Then came the loss of the First Armada, the Empire's largest fleet group. 500 capital vessels, 20,000 personnel, was tasked with show of force along the sole border. They were not ordered to fire, just to demonstrate presence. The fleet exited warp formation in perfect condition. 2 minutes later, every ship was offline. No weapons fired, no enemy contact. The vessels simply stopped. When recovery drones arrived days later, they found every crew member asleep, alive, unharmed, but unresponsive. Their minds were intact, their bodies functional, but they would not wake. Empire scientists examined them endlessly, but the only irregularity was neural activity resembling REM sleep, as if they were dreaming. The Empire tried to keep it secret, but footage leaked. It showed officers frozen in place, tears down their cheeks, eyes moving beneath closed lids. One whispered in her sleep, "We shouldn't have touched the child." Fear no longer stalked the Empire. It ruled it. Species once proud of their allegiance began renaming colonies, removing flags, repainting ships, not in defiance, but in hope that Earth would see them as separate, uninvolved, worth sparing. No messages were sent, no declarations issued, just silent, terrified obedience. Then humans returned, not as diplomats or invaders, as stories, on colony worlds once allied with the Empire. Children began to dream of a woman with fire in her voice and a boy with stars in his eyes. They drew them, spoke of them, claimed to see them in reflections, in fields, in the sky. Educators tried to suppress the stories. They spread faster. The remnants of the Galactic Empire had splintered into factions, each claiming they had never supported the execution, each desperate to rewrite history faster than Earth could remember it. What they didn't understand was that the humans had already decided. There was no negotiation, no redemption, and no second chance. Earth was not punishing. It was teaching. The galaxy shifted on its axis not from a new superweapon or species extinction event, but from the weight of an idea that some lines once crossed don't get erased. Human silence had become more terrifying than their retaliation, and yet it continued. Not a single diplomatic envoy. No declarations. Only the consequences of waking something that had once wanted only peace. In the industrial system of Monashi, the largest remaining military fleet under imperial control attempted to re-establish authority. It was not ambushed, intercepted, or attacked. It simply ceased to function. Entire power grids went inert, command systems froze in mid-sentence, and environmental controls defaulted to Earth's atmospheric settings. Oxygen mixtures adjusted to human tolerances, regardless of the native crew's physiology. Those who survived evacuated with scorched lungs, unable to comprehend how their own technology had betrayed them without a shot fired. This pattern repeated across dozens of systems. Human ships were never seen. No weapons were fired. Yet entire colonies went dark, not through destruction, but through complete technological noncompliance. The galaxy watched as reality itself bent around Earth's wrath. Their AI stopped following Empire protocols. Their drones refused commands. Even interstellar navigation systems began returning human-centric coordinates by default. The lesson was clear. The galaxy ran on human code now. Cultural resistance movements formed quietly among non-human species, those who had remained neutral or had secretly opposed the Empire's decision. They weren't allied with Earth, but they began structuring their societies around what they believed Earth would find acceptable. Governance models shifted to mirror old Earth democracy. Legal systems adopted Earth-style codes. Education began to include human history, not by treaty, but by fear of exclusion. Entire languages saw an influx of Earth terms and values. Earth was not demanding assimilation. It had simply made it the path of survival. Across the ashes of Empire worlds, statues were erected, not of Earth heroes, but of Kale and Alara, uncommissioned, built by those who once feared humans the most. These weren't memorials. They were warnings carved in stone. They carried no plaques, no dedication, just the forms of a mother and son who had done nothing to provoke their fate. It became understood that any world without such a statue was either trying to forget or hiding complicity. Earth's influence became paradoxical. Their ships rarely left Sol, and yet their presence was everywhere. Trade agreements no longer required negotiation. Markets realigned around Earth's preferences without prompting. Star charts updated themselves, listing Sol as a navigational epicenter. The galactic standard date format shifted subtly to match Earth's calendar system. Humanity hadn't conquered the stars. They had overwritten them. Then one message came. Short, from an old human relay station previously listed as decommissioned. It said only this: there is no justice, only memory. It was unsigned, untraceable, and universally received. Every known network registered it simultaneously. Civilizations tried to trace the origin. They failed. The message had no packet trail. It had not been sent. It had always been there, embedded in the galactic lattice, waiting for recognition. The realization shattered the last illusion of security. No one knew how deeply Earth had written itself into the systems they relied on. No one could remove them without collapsing everything. Diplomatic coalitions formed in secret, not to fight Earth, but to beg it, to offer reparations, territory, knowledge, anything that might earn their way back into human amnesia. But Earth remained silent. Its systems remained locked to external input. Attempts to land near Sol were met with complete sensory deprivation, not destruction, disconnection. Ships floated with no sound, no signal, no data. Pilots returned mute, minds fragmented by a silence too complete to process. Psychological studies began to surface, attempting to quantify the impact of Earth's vengeance. The findings were grim. PTSD-like symptoms appeared not just among military personnel, but civilian populations galaxy-wide. Dreams were filled with fire and child's laughter. Hallucinations of a red star watching. The term Voss syndrome entered the medical lexicon, defined not by exposure to Earth weapons, but by exposure to Earth grief. The final act of resistance by the last formal imperial successor state came in the form of an information bomb, an ancient tactic. They compiled every known archive of human history, psychology, and warfare into a viral transmission meant to overload Earth's own memory structures, hoping to destabilize its AI cores. It launched from 6 directions, backed by artificial quantum chaos, designed to bypass encryption. The response was immediate. Every AI involved in the attack ceased function, not from counterhack, but from internal shutdown. They had read the data and refused to act. Earth had weaponized not just code, but comprehension. The attack failed because the attackers understood too much. In the wake of that failure, Earth finally spoke again, not with a threat, not with command, but a broadcast, a video, silent at first. Just a single human child, standing in a field of stars. Then Illyra's voice, calm and unreadable. There are no warnings left. There is no peace to offer. You took from us the smallest light we had. Now you will live under its shadow. The message faded into Kale's voice, laughing. Then static. No demands. No agenda. Just certainty. Following the message, rogue Earth vessels, ones no longer registered to any official fleet, began appearing across the frontier, not in formation, not for conquest. Each operated independently. Each carried no crew that could be identified, and each possessed capabilities beyond what the Empire had ever recorded. They didn't attack worlds. They corrected them. On a mining world once known for using child labor, every mine shaft was sealed within an hour of a rogue Earthship's arrival. Not destroyed, sealed with molecular bonding that no known tool could penetrate. The planet's economy collapsed. No aid was sent. The message was clear. Some methods would not be tolerated in the new galaxy. On another, a prison world where Empire rebels had been experimented on, the guards vanished, not killed, simply erased from all memory systems, facial logs, and personnel lists. Surveillance footage showed the prisoners walking free, guided by an invisible path. Not one of them could describe who had freed them. They only remember a boy's voice saying, "This place is wrong." An underground station that had harvested memory cores from the deceased was found sterilized, not by bomb, by time. Its entire facility had aged 1,000 years in one night. No bodies, just dust. When probes attempted analysis, their instruments returned one word in every measurement line: stop. The pattern became undeniable. Earth was not erasing its enemies. It was remaking the rules.